2025, a single phrase took over the internet like wildfire. 6'7".
6'7".
2 words that millions of kids across America started chanting without understanding what they were really saying. Schools banned it, parents panicked, and behind it all, a rapper from the darkest corners of Philadelphia who openly admits to sacrificing animals and performing rituals to ancient spirits for his success. His name is Skrilla, and in less than 6 months he went from recording in trap houses to having the most viral moment of the entire year. But here's what nobody's talking about: the price he paid to get there. The blood sacrifices, the demonic chants, the spiritual practices that he documents on social media for millions to see. Today, we're breaking down the complete story of how Skrilla used Santeria, animal sacrifice, and alleged demonic rituals to manifest one of the fastest rises in rap history. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why parents, pastors, and even other rappers are calling him one of the most dangerous influences in music right now. This is the untold story of the demonic rapper who blew up from Voodoo. Before we get into the rituals and the controversy, you need to understand where Skrilla comes from, because his story doesn't start with music. It starts in one of the most dangerous, drug-infested neighborhoods in America. Skrilla, whose real name hasn't been widely publicized, is 24 years old and was born and raised in Kensington, Philadelphia. Now, if you're not familiar with Kensington, let me paint you a picture. This isn't just another rough neighborhood. Kensington has been called the most dangerous place in America by community activists. It's ground zero for the opioid epidemic, with open-air drug markets operating 24/7. The streets are filled with people suffering from addiction to fentanyl, tranquilizers, and a deadly drug cocktail locals call trank, or zombie drug. Skrilla grew up watching this every single day. In his own words, he's been around these streets since he was a kid, and he's not just passing through. He's embedded in that world. He's stated multiple times that the people struggling with addiction in Kensington are actually his friends, people who watched him grow up. That's how deep his roots go in that community. But here's where his story gets interesting. Unlike many rappers who come from broken homes, Skrilla actually had both parents in his life. His mother is Mexican, straight from Texas, and his father is black from Philadelphia. Both of them went to college. That's actually how they met. His father especially pushed him hard, making sure he played sports, particularly basketball. And Skrilla wasn't just playing around. Every trophy he earned was an MVP trophy. He was legitimately talented, traveling around playing competitive basketball as a kid. So you might be wondering, how does a kid with 2 college-educated parents, athletic talent, and a potential way out end up becoming one of the most controversial figures in rap? The answer lies in what he was born into spiritually. To truly understand Skrilla, we need to go deeper into Kensington, because this neighborhood isn't just background information. It's the foundation of everything Skrilla represents. Kensington sits in North Philadelphia, and over the past 2 decades, it's transformed into what locals call Zombieland. The nickname isn't an exaggeration. Walk down Kensington Avenue on any given day and you'll see hundreds of people in various states of drug-induced stupor. Some are bent over at impossible angles, frozen in what's known as the fentanyl fold. Others are covered in open sores from xylazine, a veterinary tranquilizer that's now mixed into the heroin supply. The drug literally eats away at human flesh, causing wounds that won't heal. Skrilla has documented this reality extensively. He's posted vlogs walking through Kensington, greeting people by name, showing a level of comfort in this environment that most outsiders find disturbing. In one interview, he explained that roughly 70% of the people on those streets aren't even from Philadelphia. They've traveled from all over the country because Kensington has a reputation for having the strongest, cheapest drugs in America. The neighborhood has become a destination for addiction. People Google, "Where can I get my fix?" and Kensington comes up. They arrive with nothing, set up tents on the sidewalk, and never leave. The city has tried to clean it up multiple times, sweeping through every few years, clearing the encampments, making arrests. But within weeks, sometimes days, everything returns to exactly how it was. Skrilla started selling drugs in Kensington when he was just 12 years old. This wasn't a choice born from desperation. Remember, his parents were college-educated and working. This was about the culture of the neighborhood. As Skrilla explained it, once you come outside in Kensington, you're trapping. That's just what it is. Even if you're just going to the park, by the time you go back in, you're going in with some money. By 13 and 14, Skrilla was deep in the game. Back then, the money was better. This was before fentanyl completely took over, when people were still selling dimes instead of the cheaper bundles that dominate now. Young kids like Skrilla were making serious money, and that money was intoxicating in a way that basketball trophies couldn't match. His father tried to keep him on track. Skrilla played every sport: basketball, football, track and field. He ran cross-country. He was genuinely good enough that his school's principal and teachers would later show up to his court dates to advocate for him. But the streets had a pull that organized sports couldn't compete with. Between the ages of 12 and 16, Skrilla racked up 6 heroin distribution charges. 6. Most kids that age are worried about homework and video games. Skrilla was facing serious prison time. The only reason he didn't end up in juvenile detention was because of his grades, his athletic record, and the fact that both his parents showed up to every single court appearance. The judge gave him 2.5 years of house arrest instead. Those 2.5 years changed everything. Skrilla had to graduate high school while confined to his home. He couldn't go outside, couldn't see his friends, couldn't make money on the block. And in that isolation, something shifted. He started thinking about other ways to make it out. This is where Skrilla's story takes a dark turn, because while his parents gave him opportunities, they also passed down something else, a religion that most Americans don't understand and many consider demonic. Skrilla practices Santeria, but he's quick to correct people. He specifically practices a branch called Ifa, also known as Palo or Efa. And according to Skrilla himself, this isn't something he chose. He was born into it. His mother practices it. His grandmother practices it. He's what they call a born santo, someone who inherited this spiritual path from birth. Now let me break down what Santeria actually is, because they were praying to Saint Barbara or Saint Lazarus, but in reality, they were worshipping Chango, Babalu Aye, and other Orishas. The word Santeria literally means worship of saints, but that's just the surface. Underneath the Catholic imagery is a complex system of African spiritual practices that involves animal sacrifice, spirit possession, divination, and direct communication with powerful entities. The Orishas themselves are fascinating and complex. They're not exactly gods in the monotheistic sense, but they're not exactly angels either. Think of them as power preferences and domain of influence. There are hundreds of Orishas, but practitioners typically work with a core group. Elegua is the Orisha of crossroads and doorways. Nothing can happen without his permission. He's like the gatekeeper of the spiritual realm. Offerings to Elegua always come first in any ceremony. Ogun, the Orisha Skrilla mentions most often, is the owner of iron and all metal. In traditional Yoruba culture, this made him the patron of blacksmiths and warriors. In modern practice, especially in street culture, Ogun's domain extends to guns, knives, and all weapons. He's associated with war, labor, and sacrifice. He's fierce, aggressive, and protective of those who honor him. Chango is the Orisha of thunder, lightning, fire, and drums. He's a warrior king, known for his charisma and his temper. Skrilla mentioned being crowned by Chango, which means he went through an initiation ceremony where Chango was identified as his ruling Orisha, essentially his spiritual father. Yamoja, sometimes spelled Yamaya, is the mother of all Orishas, associated with the ocean, motherhood, and nurturing. But don't mistake her maternal nature for weakness. She's also fiercely protective and can be as destructive as a tsunami when angered. Now, Skrilla practices specifically Ifa and Palo, which are related but distinct traditions. Ifa is a divination system and spiritual practice from the Yoruba people. Ifa priests, called Babalawos, use a complex system of casting palm nuts or chains to receive messages from Orunmila, the Orisha of wisdom and divination. These readings guide major life decisions and reveal a person's destiny. Palo, on the other hand, comes from the Congo region and is considered by many to be darker and more aggressive in its practices. Palo practitioners, called Paleros, work with the spirits of the dead, not Orishas, but actual human spirits. They create what's called a prenda or nganga, which is essentially a cauldron or pot that houses a spirit. This spirit is bound to serve the Palero, often through offerings of blood, alcohol, and tobacco. Palo has a reputation in Afro-Caribbean communities as the tradition you go to when you need serious work done. Protection from enemies, revenge, or material success. It's more transactional than Santeria, more focused on results than spiritual development, and it's the tradition most often associated with what outsiders would call black magic. In an interview, when asked to explain his religion, Skrilla struggled to break it down simply. But here's what he did say. "I believe in God just as well as you. I believe there's one God, but we also have ancestors. We all have ancestors that we could tap into, and there's a lot of things that you could do with your ancestors, also known as your orishas. There's a lot of things that they could help you with because we got ancestors watching over us. He specifically mentioned Ogun as one of his primary orishas. In Skrilla's words, Ogun is the owner of all metal, and I feel like just being in the streets, you should always try to be close to Ogun. He's going to make sure you're protected. He'll make sure that he'll do a lot for you. He'll keep you out of jail. There's a lot Ogun could do for you in the streets. This isn't abstract theology for Skrilla. This is practical spirituality. He believes that by honoring Ogun through offerings and sacrifices, he receives tangible protection and benefits in his daily life. Now we get to the part that has parents, pastors, and critics up in arms, because Skrilla doesn't hide what he does. He posts it on social media for everyone to see. Animal sacrifice is a core component of Santeria and Palo practices, and Skrilla has openly admitted to sacrificing goats, chickens, and mice as part of his rituals. In one interview, he stated plainly, "I sacrifice goats, chickens, mice. I do this for certain things, but I'm not allowed to explain it how you want me to explain it." Why does he do this? In Santeria, animal sacrifice serves multiple purposes. It's a way to feed the orishas, to give them energy and power. The orishas are believed to consume the life force, the ashe of the animal, while practitioners eat the physical meat afterward. It's also a form of exchange. You give something of value, the life of an animal, in return for blessings, protection, or specific outcomes you're seeking. And the blood is particularly important. In Yoruba cosmology, blood contains the essence of life itself. When blood is offered to an orisha, it's like giving them pure energy. Different orishas prefer different animals. Elegua typically receives roosters. Ogun prefers male animals, especially roosters and goats. Chango likes rams. Yamoja receives ducks or hens. The rituals themselves are elaborate. They involve specific prayers in the Lukumi language, a liturgical language derived from Yoruba, specific songs and rhythms played on consecrated drums, and specific ways of preparing and presenting the offerings. A proper sacrifice isn't just killing an animal. It's a ceremonial act that requires training and initiation. Skrilla has posted videos and images on his Instagram story showing the aftermath of these sacrifices. Chickens with their throats cut, ritual setups with candles, offerings, and ceremonial items arranged in specific patterns, plates of food left at crossroads for Elegua, bottles of rum and cigars for the spirits. He's even taken interviewers and YouTubers to his godfather's house. In Santeria, your godfather is your spiritual mentor who initiates you into the religion, to show them the altars and explain the practices. In one video, you can see elaborate shrines set up in the godfather's home. Each orisha has their own space, decorated in their specific colors, filled with their preferred items. Ogun's altar has chains, horseshoes, and metal tools. Chango's has red and white beads, a wooden mortar, and images of Saint Barbara. When asked if he worships Satan, Skrilla denied it but added, "I like when they think that though. I like having that question mark over my head. I'm an unorthodox person because of that type of thing. That's the entertainment part of me." But here's what makes this particularly controversial. Skrilla directly connects these practices to his music career. He's stated that he performs rituals before recording sessions. He's talked about how after performing certain sacrifices, opportunities started opening up for him in the industry. Doors that were previously closed suddenly opened. People who wouldn't return his calls suddenly wanted to work with him. In his lyrics, he references his spiritual practices constantly. On the track Stash Box, he raps, "Tap that button, go erase some. Smoking ops, he got lace blunts. Haven't talked to my orishas till my day come. I know Elegua going to arrive and resurrect me. Ain't nothing." On words from Ogun, he makes it clear he's not afraid because he knows Ogun is watching over him. "I ain't scared of nothing. I'm the weatherman. I make it snow like Jeezy. If I'm going to die, then I'ma die, because I know Ogun not a lot." And on the track Showings, he explicitly raps about the sacrificial process. "Having combos every once in a while, then I done make some sacrifices. Kill a goat, wash away the sins. Having talking with Babalu Aye, he telling me I'm going to live a while." This isn't metaphorical rap. This is Skrilla documenting his actual spiritual practices in his music. He's not using Santeria as an aesthetic or a gimmick. He genuinely believes that these rituals work, and he credits them with his success. Skrilla's path to music wasn't planned. He never grew up dreaming of being a rapper. His focus was basketball, then the streets, then just surviving his house arrest. Music came almost by accident. He had a close friend named Rico Havoc. who was one of the first Philly rappers to blow up after Meek Mill and Lil Uzi Vert. Rico was getting real traction, real buzz, and Skrilla watched it happen up close. One day, almost on a whim, Skrilla decided to try it himself. He went to a studio, paid an engineer, and recorded his first song. He didn't know what he was doing. He just got in the booth and started rapping about what he knew. Dog food, which is street slang for heroin. The song was called Dog Food, and it was raw, unpolished, and completely authentic. The engineer was blown away. He told Skrilla he didn't want his money. He wanted Skrilla to finish the song and let him be part of whatever came next. That's how good it was on the first try. Dog Food became one of Skrilla's signature tracks. It's still considered one of his best songs, and it set the template for everything that followed. Dark production, gritty lyrics about street life, and an energy that felt genuinely dangerous. Skrilla got DF tattooed on his face. Dog Food. He got it tattooed on his hands. This wasn't just a song title to him. It was his identity, his origin story, his brand. But what really set Skrilla apart was the aesthetic he developed. He wasn't doing typical rap videos with cars and jewelry. He was filming in Kensington, surrounded by people struggling with addiction. He was rapping in front of fires burning in trash cans. He was wearing blankets and looking genuinely unhinged. The visuals matched the music, dark, unsettling, real. He started calling himself the face of Zombieland, and it fit. Nobody else was representing Kensington the way Skrilla was. Nobody else was comfortable enough in that environment to make it their entire brand. Other Philly rappers were doing drill music, talking about gang beef and shootings. Skrilla was doing something different. He was combining street content with spiritual content, mixing tales of drug dealing with references to orishas and rituals. It was a unique lane, and it got attention. Lil Uzi Vert noticed. Uzi, who's from Philly and one of the biggest rappers in the world, reached out to Skrilla early in his career. They recorded multiple songs together. They shot a video. Uzi was co-signing Skrilla hard, telling people to pay attention. One of their collaborations got over 700,000 views in just 6 days, but then it got taken down. The official reason was unclear. Maybe label issues, maybe clearance problems. Skrilla has said he doesn't fully understand what happened, but he's not bitter about it. He respects Uzi and appreciates what he did for him. G Herbo also tapped in. Herbo, a Chicago legend known for his ear for talent, did a song with Skrilla and has continued to show support. When Skrilla comes to LA or Chicago, Herbo makes sure he's taken care of. But despite these cosigns, Skrilla remained underground for years. He was building a cult following, but he wasn't breaking through to the mainstream. He kept recording. He claims to have over 1,000 unreleased songs. But nothing was hitting the way Dog Food did initially. Then he started leaning harder into the spiritual content. He started being more open about his Santeria practices. He started posting the sacrifices, the rituals, the altars. And something shifted. In early 2025, Skrilla released a track called Doop Doop. The production was dark and hypnotic, built around a repetitive, almost trance-like beat. And on that track, Skrilla repeats a phrase over and over, 6-7. The full verse goes, say 'cause he a savage, so many dead ops, so many ashes. You ain't catch that body, I can't pass this. Shoot or state they straps, I don't need mine. Put a belt right to their behind. The way that switch go, I know we dying. 6-7, I just bip right on the highway. Dump truck, baby shark, do. I pop the perk and pop the blue. On the surface, it's a typical drill track. Violent, aggressive, street-focused. But that 6-7 hook was different. It was catchy in a way that transcended the genre. It was simple enough for anyone to remember and repeat. Within days of the song dropping, something strange started happening. People on TikTok started using 6-7 in their videos. Not just hip-hop fans, everyone. Athletes, comedians, regular kids making random content. The phrase was spreading like a virus. Then it jumped to sports. NBA players started saying it during games. High school basketball players were yelling it after making shots. Football players were using it as a celebration. It became a universal expression of hype, of confidence, of energy. The moment that really made it explode was when a high school basketball player named Tylen TK Kenny posted a video of himself rating a Starbucks drink. He took a sip, looked at the camera, and said 6-7 with perfect comedic timing. That video went mega viral, millions and millions of views across multiple platforms. Suddenly, TK was known as Mr. 6-7. He leaned into it, creating more content around the phrase. He even launched a business, 6-7 Water, a brand of canned water with his face face on it. A high school kid became an entrepreneur overnight because of a phrase from a Skrilla song. The phenomenon kept growing. Pop singer Natasha Bedingfield, who had hits in the 2000s with songs like Unwritten and Pocketful of Sunshine, brought Skrilla on stage at her concert in Philadelphia. She performed Doop Doop with him, introducing him to an audience that would never normally listen to underground Philly drill rap. Kim Kardashian made a joke about 6'7" on her reality show. Major brands started trying to figure out how to use it in marketing. It was everywhere. Schools started banning it. Teachers were frustrated because kids were disrupting class by randomly shouting 6'7". Principals sent letters home to parents explaining that the phrase was connected to violent rap music and asking parents to discourage their children from using it. But that only made it more popular. Telling kids they can't say something is the fastest way to make sure they say it constantly. Skrilla's streaming numbers exploded. Doop Doop racked up millions of plays. His other songs started getting discovered. His Instagram following grew from thousands to hundreds of thousands. Record labels started calling. He signed a deal. The exact terms haven't been made public, but it was significant enough that Skrilla went from recording in random studios to having a real team behind him. Management, publicists, marketing people, the whole infrastructure. And through all of this, Skrilla maintained that his spiritual practices were the reason for his success. In interviews during this period, he talked openly about the sacrifices he'd made before the song dropped. He talked about consulting with his godfather, about making offerings to Ogun and other Orishas, about asking for success in music. From his perspective, the rituals worked. He asked for a breakthrough, he made the appropriate sacrifices, and then 6'7" went viral. Cause and effect. But here's what most people don't know. According to sources familiar with Santeria practices, 6'7" isn't just a catchy phrase. Some claim it's a ritual chant, and that everyone who repeats it is unknowingly participating in a spiritual ritual. Now, I want to be clear, this is speculation and interpretation from people analyzing his practices. Skrilla himself hasn't explicitly confirmed this, but the theory goes like this. In numerology and spiritual practices, numbers have significance. 6 and 7 are both powerful numbers in various traditions. Some analysts believe that 6'7" is a coded reference to two specific Orishas, possibly Ogun, associated with the number 7 in some Santeria traditions, and Yemoja, associated with the number 7 in others, though this varies by house and lineage. The idea is that by getting millions of people to chant 6'7", Skrilla is essentially getting them to invoke these Orishas without knowing it. Every time someone says it, they're adding energy to the ritual, feeding power to the spirit Skrilla works with. This might sound far-fetched to skeptics, but it's consistent with how spiritual practitioners think about language and intention. In many magical traditions, words have power. Chants and mantras work by repetition, by getting people to focus energy on specific sounds or concepts. If millions of people are repeating 6'7" multiple times a day, that's a massive amount of collective energy being directed toward whatever that phrase represents. Some people have pointed out that Skrilla also references Baby Shark in the same verse. Dump truck, baby shark, do-do-do-do. Baby Shark is one of the most popular children's songs in history, with billions of views on YouTube. By connecting his phrase to something kids already know and love, he's making it even more likely that children will latch onto 6'7" and repeat it constantly. Again, this is interpretation, but it's worth considering, especially given how open Skrilla is about using spiritual practices to advance his career. There's also the street element. 6'7" isn't just a spiritual reference. It's also connected to a real neighborhood and crew in Philadelphia. Skrilla took the name from an area called YSN, also known as the Real 67. This crew has been involved in serious street beef, with multiple murders connected to their conflicts with rival groups. So, when kids are chanting 6'7", they're potentially invoking spiritual entities and unknowingly representing a gang that's involved in real violence. Most of them have no idea about either dimension. They just think it's a fun thing to say. This is where the controversy reaches its peak. Because while Skrilla denies worshiping Satan, many Christians, spiritual leaders, and concerned parents are calling his practices demonic. Let me break down why people are making this claim, because it's more nuanced than just anything non-Christian is demonic. First, from a Christian perspective, any spiritual practice that involves communicating with entities other than God through Jesus Christ is considered demonic. The Bible explicitly forbids witchcraft, divination, communicating with the dead, and making sacrifices to any god other than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Deuteronomy 18:10-12 says, "Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord." Leviticus 17:7 specifically addresses sacrificing to entities other than God. They must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. From this biblical framework, what Skrilla calls orishas or ancestors, Christians would call demons, fallen angels who rebelled against God and now seek to deceive humans and lead them away from salvation. The Christian argument goes like this: demons are real spiritual beings with intelligence and power. They can't create or give life, but they can manipulate circumstances, influence thoughts, and create the appearance of answered prayers. When someone makes offerings to an orisha and then experiences success, Christians believe that's a demon providing temporary benefits in exchange for worship and spiritual bondage. It's essentially a deal with the devil, even if the practitioner doesn't see it that way. The demon masquerades as an ancestor or a benevolent spirit, accepts the worship and sacrifices and grants requests, but the ultimate goal is to keep that person separated from God and destined for hell. Second, the practice of blood sacrifice outside of the biblical context is seen as particularly demonic. In Christianity, Jesus Christ was the final and ultimate sacrifice. His blood covered all sins for those who believe in him. Hebrews 10:10 says, "We have been made holy through the sacrifice of the body of Jesus Christ once for all." Any other blood sacrifice is viewed as either meaningless or worse, as feeding demonic entities. The idea is that demons crave worship and blood because they're trying to mimic or mock the true sacrifice of Christ. Third, the connection between Skrilla's rituals and his sudden success raises the question of what Christians call selling your soul. This is the idea that someone makes a spiritual pact with demonic forces, offering their soul or their service in exchange for fame, wealth, or power. While this might sound like superstition to some, it's a concept that appears throughout history and across cultures. The legend of blues musician Robert Johnson selling his soul at the crossroads. The rumors about countless celebrities making deals for fame. The occult practices of figures like Aleister Crowley. From a Christian perspective, Skrilla's own words condemn him. He openly admits to making sacrifices for specific outcomes. He credits his spiritual practices with his success. He's documented the entire process. If you believe demons are real and actively seeking to deceive people, Skrilla's story fits the pattern perfectly. Several Christian content creators have made videos analyzing Skrilla's practices. One pastor broke down an interview where Skrilla discusses his beliefs and pointed out several red flags. First, Skrilla couldn't clearly articulate what he believes or why. When asked to explain his religion, he deflected and said it's like asking someone to explain Christianity. But the pastor pointed out that any genuine Christian should be able to explain the gospel clearly, that we're sinners in need of salvation, that Jesus died for our sins and rose again, and that faith in him brings eternal life. The fact that Skrilla couldn't explain his beliefs suggests he doesn't fully understand what he's involved in. Second, Skrilla claimed to believe in God just as well as you, but then described practices that are completely incompatible with biblical Christianity. You can't worship the God of the Bible while also making sacrifices to other spirits. Jesus said in Matthew 6:24, "No one can serve two masters." Third, Skrilla admitted he likes being seen as dark and mysterious, that he enjoys people thinking he might be involved in something demonic. The pastor argued that this reveals Skrilla's true heart. He's not seeking truth or righteousness, he's seeking attention and power. The pastor's conclusion was that Skrilla is either deceived about the true nature of what he's involved in, or he knows exactly what he's doing and doesn't care about the spiritual consequences for himself or his fans. Another major concern among Christian leaders is the influence on young people. Millions of kids are now fans of Skrilla, listening to his music, following him on social media, and repeating his phrases without understanding the spiritual implications. Some religious leaders argue that by getting children to chant 6-7 and engage with his content, Skrilla is spiritually influencing an entire generation, potentially opening them up to demonic oppression or influence. In spiritual warfare theology, there's a concept that giving attention and energy to demonic things creates an opening for those demons to have influence in your life. If a kid is listening to Skrilla's music for hours every day, watching his videos, repeating his chants, and idolizing him as an artist, that creates a spiritual connection. And if Skrilla is genuinely connected to demonic forces through his practices, then that connection extends to his fans. It's similar to how Christians view occult practices like Ouija boards or seances. Even if you're just playing around, even if you don't really believe in it, you're still opening a door to spiritual forces that you don't understand and can't control. To fully understand this situation, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture of spirituality in hip-hop and the tension between religious freedom and spiritual concern. Skrilla isn't the first rapper to be associated with occult practices or alternative spirituality. Hip-hop has a long history of artists exploring themes of spirituality, mysticism, and even darkness. Jay-Z has been accused for years of being in the Illuminati, of using occult symbolism in his videos and performances. Whether there's any truth to it or not, the perception exists, and it's shaped how millions of people view him. Lil Uzi Vert has been extremely open about his fascination with satanic imagery. He's worn upside-down crosses, referenced Lucifer in his lyrics, and even got a massive diamond implanted in his forehead, which some interpreted as a reference to the mark of the beast. Tyler, the creator, built his early career on shock value, using demonic imagery and violent lyrics to provoke reactions. He's since moved away from that aesthetic, but it was a major part of his initial rise. Countless rappers have claimed to have sold their souls for success, whether literally or metaphorically. It's become almost a cliche in hip-hop, the idea that you have to make a deal with the devil to make it in the industry. But Skrilla is different in one key way. He's not being metaphorical. He's not using occult imagery for shock value or artistic expression. He's literally practicing Santeria, literally performing animal sacrifices, and literally crediting these practices with his success. There's no ambiguity here. There's no "it's just art" defense. This raises important questions about religious freedom, cultural practices, and where we draw the line between artistic expression and spiritual influence. Santeria is a legally protected religion in the United States. In 1993, the Supreme Court ruled in Church of the Lukumi Babalu Aye versus City of Hialeah that laws banning animal sacrifice were unconstitutional because they violated the free exercise of religion. The City of Hialeah, Florida, had passed ordinances specifically targeting Santeria practices, and the court ruled 9-0 that this was religious discrimination. So, from a legal standpoint, Skrilla has every right to practice his religion, including animal sacrifice, as long as he's doing it in accordance with local health and safety regulations. From a cultural standpoint, Santeria and related traditions are important parts of Afro-Caribbean heritage. For millions of practitioners across the Americas, these aren't demonic practices. They're ancestral traditions that connect them to their roots and provide spiritual guidance, healing, and community. To dismiss all of Santeria as demonic is, in their view, culturally insensitive and ignorant. It's imposing a Christian worldview on practices that come from completely different cultural and historical contexts. It's a form of spiritual colonialism, the same kind of thinking that led to the suppression of indigenous religions around the world. Practitioners would argue that Santeria is a legitimate spiritual path, that the Orishas are real and benevolent forces, and that the practices work because they're tapping into genuine spiritual power, not demonic deception. They would point out that Santeria has helped countless people, providing healing, guidance, protection, and community. They would argue that the negative perception comes from racism, cultural bias, and Christian supremacy, not from any actual harm caused by the practices. But from a Christian standpoint, religious freedom doesn't change spiritual truth. Christians believe that just because something is legal or culturally significant doesn't make it spiritually safe or morally right. They would argue that Skrilla has the legal right to practice Santeria, but that doesn't mean it's not dangerous for his soul or for the souls of his young fans. They would say that cultural heritage doesn't justify practices that the Bible explicitly condemns. This tension between religious freedom, cultural respect, and spiritual concern is at the heart of the Skrilla controversy. There's no easy answer because people are operating from fundamentally different worldviews. If you believe the Bible is the ultimate authority on spiritual matters, then Skrilla's practices are clearly wrong, regardless of their cultural significance or legal protection. If you believe that all spiritual paths are valid and that different cultures have different ways of connecting with the divine, then Skrilla is simply expressing his heritage and shouldn't be condemned for it. If you're skeptical of all spiritual claims and view religion as purely psychological or cultural, then Skrilla's practices are harmless, just rituals that make him feel confident and focused, with no actual supernatural component. The question is, which worldview is correct? And how do we navigate a pluralistic society where people hold radically different beliefs about the nature of reality? There's another layer to this story that we can't ignore: the street element and the real-world violence connected to Skrilla's music. The phrase 6-7 isn't just a spiritual chant, it's also connected to gang culture in Philadelphia. Skrilla took the name from a real neighborhood and crew in Philly called YSN, also known as the Real 67, and there's real blood behind that name. YSN has been involved in serious street beef for years. In 2022, two YSN members named Penny and Daz were killed during a robbery gone wrong. According to reports, they tried to rob their own friend, a rapper named Banzo who reps a crew called Seven. Banzo allegedly had $50,000 in his house, so Penny and Daz tried to take it. It's not clear exactly how it went down, but shots were fired. Penny took a headshot and died at the scene. Daz died later that night in the ICU. The cops found them both, and the story eventually came out that they'd been trying to backdoor their own homie. A few weeks later, Banzo released a track called The Drop, where he addressed the situation. They had the drop. Thank God they had no aim. Slime 7 days straight. I can't say my brother's name. But the violence didn't stop there. Banzo also has ties to a crew called Only the Africans, also known as OTA. One of his best friends was an OTA member named Shaq. In June 2024, YSN allegedly slid on Shaq in broad daylight and killed him in the street. The shooter was reportedly a YSN member named Chucky, but Chucky didn't just hit Shaq, he also shot Shaq's little sister in the head. She survived, but the fact that he hit a young girl made the retaliation even more intense. Rumors say that OTA put a huge bag on Chucky's head after Shaq got killed, and it wasn't long before somebody collected. In June 2024, somebody caught Chucky lacking on the street and brutally killed him. They really wanted to take Chucky out. 6 shooters ran down on him altogether. There was no way he was making it out alive. They hit him with 15 shots from an AK-47. It was overkill, a message. And rumors said that one of the shooters was a dude from G5 named Jig. Jig allegedly got paid for the Chucky hit, but then somebody caught Jig too and killed him not long after Chucky was shot. This is the real-world context behind 6-7. While millions of kids are chanting it as a meme in Philadelphia, it represents real bloodshed, real loss, and real gang warfare. Real people are dead. Real families are grieving. Real communities are traumatized. Skrilla has connections to this world. He's from Kensington. He's been in the streets since he was 12 years old selling drugs, and he's tapped into the drill scene in Philly. He's friends with rappers like YBC Dull, who's known more for violence than music. YBC Dull is part of the Young Bag Chasers, a group that's been heavily targeted by law enforcement. Philly police literally went on the news and said that if you're affiliated with YBC, you're going to jail. They're treating it like a gang, using RICO-style tactics to take down the whole crew. Skrilla was around YBC, though he's been careful to say he's not officially part of the group. He's his own man, doing his own thing. But the associations are there. When Skrilla raps 6-7 and talks about so many dead ops, so many ashes, he's not playing a character. He's rapping about a reality that he's close to, even if he's not directly involved in the violence himself. This adds another dimension to the demonic allegations, because it's not just about spiritual practices. It's about glorifying violence, death, and street warfare to an audience of impressionable young people. Kids who have no connection to Philadelphia, who've never experienced street violence, who live in safe suburbs. They're listening to Skrilla and thinking this lifestyle is cool. They're repeating phrases connected to real murders. They're idolizing a culture of death. And from a Christian perspective, that's demonic too. Not in the sense of literal demon worship, but in the sense of celebrating death and destruction, which is the opposite of God's character. Jesus said in John 10:10, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." If Skrilla's music is leading young people to glorify violence and death, then it's serving the thief's purpose, not God's purpose. Here's something that often gets overlooked in these discussions: the role of the music industry in amplifying artists like Skrilla. Skrilla recently signed a record deal, which means there are now executives, marketers, A&Rs, and industry professionals who have a financial interest in his success. They see the viral moment, they see the streaming numbers, they see the cultural impact, and they see dollar signs. The music industry has always had a complicated relationship with controversial content. On one hand, controversy sells. Artists who push boundaries, shock audiences, and generate debate tend to get more attention, more streams, more press coverage, and ultimately more money. Think about how many careers have been built on controversy. Eminem became the biggest rapper in the world, partly because parents and politicians were trying to ban his music. Marilyn Manson sold millions of albums because Christian groups were protesting his concerts. Lil Nas X's Montero became a massive hit, partly because of the outrage over the Satan imagery in the video. Controversy is a marketing tool, and the industry knows how to use it. On the other hand, there are limits. Artists can go too far and become unmarketable, face serious backlash, or even face legal consequences that make them too risky to invest in. Skrilla exists in an interesting space. He's controversial enough to generate massive attention, but he's also authentic enough that he can't be easily dismissed as a gimmick or a troll. He's not pretending to practice Santeria for shock value. He actually practices it. He's not faking his connection to the streets. He's genuinely from that world. For the industry, this authenticity is valuable. In an era where audiences are increasingly skeptical of manufactured artists and fake personas, Skrilla represents something real, even if that reality is dark and controversial. Record labels can market him as the real deal, as someone who's not playing a character, and that authenticity makes the controversy more palatable, more defensible. They can say, "We're not promoting demonic practices, we're just giving a platform to an artist expressing his genuine cultural heritage." But this raises serious ethical questions. Should record labels be promoting an artist who openly performs animal sacrifices and potentially exposes young fans to spiritual practices that many consider dangerous? Should streaming platforms amplify music that contains what some believe are literal demonic chants? Should radio stations play songs that glorify violence and reference real murders? Should brands partner with an artist whose content is getting banned in schools because it's disrupting education? These aren't easy questions, and different people will have different answers based on their values and beliefs. What's clear is that the industry has made its choice. Skrilla is being pushed, promoted, and positioned for mainstream success. His songs are getting playlisted on major streaming platforms. His videos are getting promoted on YouTube. He's getting interviews with major media outlets. He's being booked for shows and festivals. The machine is behind him. And once the machine gets behind an artist, they tend to blow up even bigger. More resources, more connections, more opportunities. Whether that's a good thing or a dangerous thing depends on who you ask. But it's happening, and it's happening fast. There's one more aspect of Skrilla's story that deserves serious attention: his relationship with drugs and the question of his mental health. Skrilla has been completely open about his drug use. He's stated that he can't make music unless he's high. Every song he's ever recorded, and he claims to have thousands of unreleased tracks, was made while he was under the influence. He specifically mentioned taking Percocet, G6 pills, a type of sedative that glows in the dark, and other substances. In one interview, he was literally taking whippets, inhaling nitrous oxide throughout the conversation. He offered the interviewer some, and when the interviewer hesitated, Skrilla just kept hitting it himself. In one particularly revealing moment, Skrilla said that when he takes certain drugs and goes to the studio, he says things he didn't even know he knew. He'll use words and later look them up to find out he used them correctly, even though he didn't consciously know their meaning. He described it as the drugs making him smart as hell, giving him cheat codes to creativity. This is concerning on multiple levels. First, there's the obvious health risk. Skrilla admits to spending $400 to $600 every single day on drugs. That's over $200,000 a year just on getting high. At 24 years old, he's already deeply dependent on substances, and he's expressed worry about what he'll look like at 35 if he continues on this path. Nitrous oxide in particular can cause serious neurological damage with chronic use. It depletes vitamin B12, which can lead to nerve damage, cognitive impairment, and even paralysis in extreme cases. The fact that Skrilla is using it regularly, possibly daily, is a major red flag. Percocet and other opioids carry the obvious risks of addiction and overdose, especially in an era when the drug supply is contaminated with fentanyl. Skrilla says he's careful to avoid pressed pills and only takes real pharmaceutical Percocet, but even that is dangerous when used in high doses over long periods. Second, there's the question of whether the drugs are connected to his spiritual practices. In many shamanic and occult traditions, altered states of consciousness, whether through drugs, fasting, meditation, or other means, are used to facilitate communication with spiritual entities. Ayahuasca ceremonies in South American shamanism, peyote use in Native American spirituality, cannabis in Rastafarianism, alcohol and tobacco in Santeria and Palo rituals. The use of consciousness-altering substances to access the spiritual realm is a common thread across many traditions. Is Skrilla's drug use simply recreational and creative, or is it part of his spiritual practice? Is he using drugs to open himself up to communication with the Orishas or other entities? He's never explicitly said this, but the connection is worth considering. If he can only create music while high, and if his music is filled with references to his spiritual practices, then the drugs might be functioning as a gateway to whatever spiritual forces he's tapping into. From a Christian perspective, this would be even more concerning. The idea of using drugs to access spiritual realms is seen as extremely dangerous because it removes your mental defenses and makes you vulnerable to demonic influence. You're essentially inviting spirits in while your consciousness is compromised. Third, there's the impact on his music and his message. If Skrilla can only create while high, and if his spiritual practices are intertwined with his creative process, then his music becomes a direct channel for whatever spiritual forces he's connected to, whether you believe those are Orishas, ancestors, demons, or simply his own drug-altered subconscious. When millions of people listen to music created in that state, what are they receiving? Is it just entertainment, or is there a spiritual transmission happening? Again, your answer depends on your worldview, but it's a question worth asking. Skrilla has said that when he eventually stops doing drugs, he'll stop rapping, cut his hair, and become a whole new person. This suggests that he sees his current identity, including his music career, as inseparable from his drug use and spiritual practices. It's all one package: the drugs, the rituals, the music, the persona, and he doesn't know who he'd be without it. Let's step back and look at what the Skrilla phenomenon tells us about culture, spirituality, and influence in 2025. First, it shows us that ancient spiritual practices are alive and well in the modern world. Santeria isn't some relic of the past, it's a living tradition with millions of practitioners, and it's now intersecting with mainstream pop culture through artists like Skrilla. This challenges the secular assumption that we're living in a post-religious age. We're not. We're living in a spiritually diverse age, where traditional religions coexist with alternative spiritual practices, and where those practices are increasingly visible in public life. Second, it demonstrates the power of authenticity in the social media age. Skrilla's rise wasn't manufactured by a major label or a marketing team. It was organic, driven by his genuine connection to his community, his unapologetic embrace of his beliefs, and his raw, unfiltered content. In an era of carefully curated personas and manufactured authenticity, Skrilla's realness, however dark, resonates with audiences. People can tell when someone is being genuine, even if they don't agree with or understand what that person represents. Third, it highlights the spiritual illiteracy of modern society. Millions of people are engaging with Skrilla's content without understanding the spiritual dimensions of what they're participating in. They're repeating 6-7 without knowing it might be a ritual chant. They're listening to songs about Orishas without knowing what Orishas are. They're watching videos of animal sacrifices without understanding the religious context. Whether you believe in the spiritual realm or not, the fact remains that Skrilla believes in it, practices it, and creates his art from that worldview. To fully understand his impact, you have to take his spirituality seriously, even if you don't share his beliefs. Fourth, it raises questions about parental responsibility and media literacy. How many parents know what their kids are listening to? How many understand the spiritual and cultural context of the music their children consume? The 6-7 phenomenon caught many parents off guard because they didn't realize what their kids were chanting or where it came from. By the time they found out, it was already everywhere, and trying to stop it just made it more appealing. And this points to a larger issue. In the age of streaming and social media, parents have less control over what their children are exposed to. Kids can access any music, any video, any content with a few taps on their phone. Parental controls and restrictions only go so far. Fifth, it forces us to confront the tension between religious freedom and spiritual concern. In a pluralistic society, we protect people's right to practice their religion, even if others find those practices disturbing or dangerous. But we also have to grapple with the question of influence, especially when it comes to young, impressionable audiences. Does religious freedom extend to promoting those practices to millions of children through popular music? There's no easy answer, but it's a conversation we need to have. Not everyone is celebrating Skrilla's success. There's been significant pushback from various communities, and the response has been intense. Christian leaders and content creators have been particularly vocal. Pastors across the country have made videos breaking down Skrilla's beliefs and warning their congregations about the spiritual dangers of his music. One pastor created a detailed analysis of Skrilla's interview where he discusses Santeria. The pastor went through point by point explaining why each aspect of Skrilla's beliefs contradicts biblical Christianity. He emphasized that while Skrilla claims to believe in God, he's not following the God of the Bible. He's following a syncretic religion that mixes truth with deception. The pastor's video got hundreds of thousands of views and sparked intense debate in the comments. Some people agreed completely, saying they'd been warning their kids about Skrilla for months. Others accused the pastor of being culturally insensitive and imposing Christian beliefs on African spiritual traditions. Youth ministers have been having conversations with teenagers about why they shouldn't be listening to Skrilla or repeating 6-7. These conversations are difficult because the kids don't see the harm. To them, it's just a fun phrase and catchy music. Some parents have outright banned their children from listening to Skrilla's music or saying the phrase. They've blocked him on streaming services, had serious talks about spiritual warfare, and tried to explain why this particular artist is different from other rappers. Schools have implemented policies against students chanting 6-7 because it became so disruptive. Teachers reported that kids were saying it constantly. In the hallways, during class, at lunch, during tests, it was interfering with education. Some schools sent letters home to parents explaining that the phrase comes from violent rap music and asking parents to discourage their children from using it. Other schools simply added it to the list of banned phrases and started giving detentions to kids who said it. Of course, this only made it more popular. Telling teenagers they can't do something is the fastest way to ensure they do it constantly. Even within the hip-hop community, there's been debate. Some artists respect Skrilla's authenticity and his connection to his culture. They see him as someone who's genuinely representing where he's from, both geographically and spiritually. Others are concerned about the message he's sending and the influence he's having on young fans. They worry that he's glorifying drug use, violence, and practices that could be spiritually dangerous. A few artists have subtly distanced themselves from Skrilla without explicitly calling him out. They'll say things like, "I respect his artistry, but that's not my path," or "Everyone's on their own spiritual journey." Interestingly, Skrilla seems completely unbothered by the criticism. He's said multiple times that he likes being controversial, that he enjoys having people question whether he's involved in something dark. In one interview, he said, "I like when they think that. I like having that question mark over my head. I'm an unorthodox person because of that type of thing. That's the entertainment part of me." For him, the controversy is part of his brand, part of what makes him interesting as an artist. He's not trying to convince anyone that Santeria is good or safe. He's just being himself and letting people react however they want. But this attitude concerns his critics even more. They argue that Skrilla is treating serious spiritual matters as entertainment, and that he's either deceived about the true nature of what he's involved in, or he knows exactly what he's doing and doesn't care about the consequences for his fans. So where does Skrilla go from here? And what does his story ultimately mean? His career trajectory is undeniably upward. He's got major collaborations in the works, including ongoing work with G Herbo. He's getting co-signs from established artists across different regions. His streaming numbers continue to grow. The 6-7 phenomenon has given him a level of name recognition that most underground rappers never achieve. He's transcended the Philly drill scene and become a national figure. People who've never heard of YBC Doll or OT7 Kwani know who Skrilla is because of 6-7, but there are also serious warning signs on the horizon. Skrilla's heavy drug use is unsustainable. Spending $400 to $600 a day on drugs, using nitrous oxide regularly, taking high doses of opioids, this lifestyle has an expiration date. Either he'll get clean, or his health will deteriorate, or he'll overdose. There's no fourth option. His connection to street violence puts him at risk. Even though he's not directly involved in the gang beef, he's associated with it. He's friends with people who are active in the streets. He raps about real situations and real people. That makes him a potential target, either for rivals who want to hurt his friends or for people who feel disrespected by his music. His controversial spiritual practices could eventually lead to serious backlash that affects his career. Right now, the controversy is helping him. It's generating attention and making him more interesting. But there could come a point where it becomes too much, where brands won't work with him, where platforms start restricting his content, where the backlash outweighs the benefits. And his own statement suggests that he sees his current path as temporary. He said that when he stops doing drugs, he'll stop rapping and become a whole new person. This implies that he knows his current lifestyle isn't sustainable long-term. The question is, will he get the chance to make that change, or will the lifestyle catch up with him first? There's also the question of his influence and legacy. How many young people will be drawn to Santeria or similar practices because of Skrilla? How many will start experimenting with the spiritual realm without understanding what they're getting into? How many will adopt his nihilistic attitude toward violence and death? How many will start using drugs because he makes it look cool and creative? These aren't hypothetical questions. Skrilla has millions of followers, many of them teenagers and young adults. His influence is real, and the consequences of that influence will play out over years and decades. From a Christian perspective, the concern is eternal. If Skrilla is leading people away from Christ and toward demonic practices, then he's contributing to their spiritual destruction. And if he dies without repenting and turning to Jesus, then his own soul is in danger. But from Skrilla's perspective, he's just being himself. He's practicing the religion he was born into. He's making music about his real life. He's not forcing anyone to listen or to adopt his beliefs. People have free will to engage with his content or not. From a cultural perspective, Skrilla represents the ongoing vitality of African diaspora religions in the Americas. Santeria, Candomblé, Voodoo, Palo, these traditions have survived centuries of suppression and continue to thrive. Skrilla is part of that continuity, bringing ancient practices into the modern world. From a skeptical perspective, Skrilla is just a talented artist who happens to believe in things that aren't real. The rituals don't actually work. His success is due to talent, timing, and the viral nature of 6-7. The spiritual stuff is just window dressing, interesting but ultimately meaningless. Which perspective is correct? That's the question each person has to answer for themselves based on their worldview and beliefs. The story of Skrilla is ultimately a story about belief, power, and consequences. Skrilla believes that his spiritual practices, his rituals, his sacrifices, his communication with orishas have given him success. Whether you think he's tapping into real spiritual forces, experiencing psychological placebo effects, or simply benefiting from talent and timing, the fact remains that he believes it, and that belief shapes everything he does. The power dynamics are complex. Skrilla has power as an artist with a massive platform. The spiritual entities he claims to work with have power in his worldview. The music industry has power to amplify or suppress his message. Parents and communities have power to accept or reject his influence. And ultimately, each individual has the power to choose whether to engage with his content or not. The consequences are still unfolding. We don't yet know the full impact of the 6-7 phenomenon. We don't know how Skrilla's story will end. We don't know how many lives will be influenced, for better or worse, by his music and his message. What we do know is this: Skrilla represents something significant in contemporary culture. He's a bridge between ancient spiritual practices and modern hip-hop. He's a product of America's most devastated communities who's found a way to turn pain and darkness into art and success. He's a controversial figure who forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about spirituality, influence, and freedom. Whether you see him as a demonic influence corrupting youth, a cultural practitioner expressing his heritage, an artist making provocative music, or simply a talented rapper who happens to have unusual beliefs, you can't deny his impact. The demonic rapper who blew up from Voodoo is here. His music is in your kids' playlists. His phrases are in their vocabulary. His influence is spreading. And the question each of us has to answer is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to engage critically, understanding the spiritual and cultural context of what we're consuming? Are we going to dismiss it as harmless entertainment? Are we going to sound the alarm and warn others about what we perceive as danger? Are we going to respect his religious freedom while also protecting our own spiritual boundaries? The choice is yours. But make no mistake, this isn't just about one rapper from Philadelphia. It's about the spiritual battle that's always been raging, now playing out in the most visible arena of our time, popular culture. It's about how we navigate a world where ancient practices and modern technology collide. It's about how we protect young people while respecting diverse beliefs. It's about how we discern truth in an age of information overload and spiritual confusion. Skrilla's story is still being written, but one thing is certain, it's a story that demands our attention, our discernment, and our response. Because in the end, what we tolerate, we teach. What we celebrate, we multiply. And what we ignore, we empower. The demonic rapper blew up from Voodoo. He made sacrifices to spirits, chanted phrases that millions now repeat, and rose from the streets of Zombieland to national prominence in a matter of months. Whether that's a triumph of authenticity, a cautionary tale of spiritual deception, or simply an interesting cultural moment depends on who you ask. But everyone agrees on one thing: Skrilla is impossible to ignore. And that might be the most concerning thing of all. If you made it this far, drop a comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Skrilla's practices are dangerous, or is this just cultural expression being misunderstood? Is 6'7" just a catchy phrase, or is there something deeper happening? And if you want to see more deep dives into the intersection of spirituality and hip-hop, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This conversation is just beginning, and it's one we all need to be part of. Peace.